Hey guys, welcome to another Iron Mike GT Sport FAI stream. Today we're at the this is the manufacturers race at Sardegna Road Track B2. So apparently that means we're going backwards. So I did go through the qualifying. This is the first race of the day. I had been practicing for a few days, and my confidence was okay, but I knew being the Alfa Romeo, I wasn't going to be super fast on the straights, but did qualify 6th, which surprised me. And I thought, well, let's see how we go. I must admit I was quite nervous. Yeah, and I think that's really why I tend to try and start at the back, but here I am in 6th place. So the Alfa Romeo, like I said, isn't the fastest car on the track, but its strengths are it can handle late braking and good acceleration and corner handling. So majority of this track is quite short and bendy. Just this section of the track is probably its weak spot, but as long as I can keep in people's slipstream, I should be alright. So starting off in 6th place, right in front of me I've got a mate of mine, Oz Soul Reaper. So just being mindful not to rear end him turn 1, and hopefully no one behind me. And look at that. So I've been practicing quite a bit and found myself quite comfortable on this track. All of a sudden I find myself getting a bit loose, and maybe it's the nerves and the adrenaline that I'm just pushing it a bit too hard. So this race is hards only, 16 laps, and the fuel depletion is times 6. Now when I first took note of all the track and race information, I actually had it as fuel consumption 5. So when I was practicing, I thought, oh, I could probably fuel save and try and get away with it, and then I realised it wasn't 5, it was 6. So I realised then fuel saving is out of the question, and had to get on with practicing just going for it. And so my strategy is lap 8, pit and refuel to get to the end and change tyres from hards to hards. So again, starting lap 6, not too much has happened except just trying to get my nerves to settle and get away from the guy behind me. So here again, just, and also being close to other cars like Ozhol Reaper. You're trying to settle down and relax, but you've also got to be very careful. So these corners here, I find it to be almost like one continuous sweep, and then down here just before the cones I begin to brake from 4th down to 2nd, just to make sure I'm stable going around this corner. Now I am actually using traction control 1. Using no traction control, I found I could just spin the car out a bit, like at this moment, or tight corners. And like I said, at the very beginning of the race, I find my adrenaline is going, my nerves are going, so it's very easy for me to put a car out. So and traction control 2 was a little bit too much. So TC1 I felt was okay, and brake balance is -1. So just at the front, and having hard tyres doesn't really, it was an okay position, -1 brake balance. So as you can see here, Dead Man Running and Oz Soul Reaper, both of them have got 2.5 second penalties, which, because they went out wide on that final corner, and I thought, great, you know, when we get around to the penalty point, I should quite easily get past them. But obviously now I've had Abirist get past me, and there he goes. And this gives me a bit of a gap behind me so I can relax. and just focus on keeping up with Deadman Running and Oz Soul Reaper. So, and I found him here at the moment, just getting away a bit. So, in these short, twisty bits, I needed to make sure I got nice and close. And corners like this can, if you don't get it right, can cause you grief. So I had to just try and keep going back to my practicing during the week and almost treat it like a time trial, but without pushing it too hard. Try and clear everything else from my head. So from 6th I've got up to 4th, and here you can see Deadman Running is with his faster car, of course, and in my slipstream he's made it easy work getting past me. Hopefully now on these short twistier bits I can now work to get past him. And at the moment it's not that easy, but you can see here he's not getting away from me, and I'm almost making passes. I've got to be careful not to get a bit too silly, because I can fall back quite far, and then I've got Oz Soul Reaper who can either A, overtake me and put me back into 6th again, or being a teammate basically, you know, being careful of me, then we both fall back. So I had to try and make sure if I'm holding this position, keep the pressure on Deadman Running. I guess because if I am falling back, then that gives Oz Soul Reaper every right to say, look, you know, you can't keep up, I'm making a move. And I would have to give up that position. So I can't remember whether or not I'm still, and I'm pretty sure I am still quite nervous. You know, because I guess in the back of my mind I'm thinking anything could go wrong at any time. So if I'm pitting at at the end of lap 8, then we're just over halfway through my first stint. And so far so good. I've kept it clean. Right here, just holding a bit of a tighter line. Be mindful here, just to brake before those cones and get in here nice and clean without going out too wide. And keeping in his slipstream. And you can see Oz Soul Reaper is quite easily staying in my slipstream as well. He's not falling back. But at the moment he's not applying too much pressure. I think he's just playing the waiting game. Now I've had a race a few months ago on this track when I was signed up with the Renault. So I had the Renault Megane, and I actually won the race. And so going back to that race, I remember, you know, even if you can't pass a car, just apply the pressure and just hope that they make a mistake. And then pounce on it, of course. So you can see Oz Soul Reaper, he has dropped back a bit. He, don't know if he was really making a move on that final corner, but it has cost him a bit of time. You can see there Deadman Running, he's just pushing a bit too hard and going wide. Even though he's not losing a position, I'm thinking at the moment, the wider you go, mate, the more your tyres are going to be wearing, and the more struggling you're going to be facing. So it's a bit of a mind game, isn't it? And the thing I like about like a race like this, Deadman Running was probably thinking he would just, once he gets past me, he'll just run away. And yet, I haven't let him go at all. So let's have a look at the pace difference here. So he's 0.3, 0.4. He is getting away from me, but while I'm in his slipstream, He's not getting away too far. So it looks like I'm now catching up. And then we're back into my area where pretty much I dominate. See there, just look at that. So he's had a bit of a wild moment there, but he's oh no, I've got this now. Yeah, did take it. You know, and the reason my Alpha, I think it's about 900 kilos, whereas the cars behind me are probably 1,200, 1,300 kilos. So that's why they're struggling a bit more around the corners, and that would be adding extra wear, especially if they're trying to keep up. Got 3 cars now behind. See, that moment there of going around that corner and accelerating, I think if I had 0 traction control, I would have just spanned that. So that's Deadman and Australian Doom going in the pits. So now I've just got Oz Soul Reaper behind me now. So it's probably about now, it looks like it's just Oz Soul Reaper and myself, and this moment here, I think it's, you know, I was waiting for him to pass on that. That wasn't the best cornering there. And so I had indicated for him to overtake a lap or 2 ago, but obviously he wasn't close enough to do so. I went a bit wide here, so I thought this is the moment to let him pass. We kind of lost track of where we were with each other, so we just bumped panels a bit there, but no harm done, and away he goes. So you can see I've got minus 1 brake balance, and my fronts are wearing more than my rears, but considering they're hards, we're only doing 8 laps. The wear isn't that much. So I still had a bit of fuel after 8 laps, but here I went to 9 laps of fuel. I just wanted to make sure I had plenty of fuel. So up to 97%, I think that is. So it puts me back to 8th place, and that wasn't the best outlap first corner. Extra weight with the fuel, fresh tyres, and just getting back in the rhythm and messing it up a bit. But I was lucky with that. So fresh tyres, not too sure where everyone else is, you know, in relation to their tyres. Had they pitted the lap before, or are they yet to pit? The only way I'm going to find out is really whether or not I'm picking up on them or dropping away. I think it was about now, I actually was thinking to myself, if I had a bit of fuel remaining after 8 laps, then maybe I didn't need to put 9 laps worth of fuel. So it's around here I thought I'm going to start fuel burning. So normally I'd go into 6th gear. Oh, no, I'm here. Maybe a bit later, I just keep it in 5th, just to get rid of some fuel. So it looks like Oz Soul Reaper, he's pitted a lap after me, and look at that, he's just pulled out in front of me here, so it's pretty much good timing. I may have got him if I didn't mess up that first corner, but who's to know? And the other thing was, you know, considering our timing, I thought, well, you were, I think he was 4th and I was 5th, I think, and now we're 5th and 6th after pitting. So I thought maybe someone else is still yet to pit, or there'll be someone that will be soon be overtaking and passing. I just had a gut feeling that we'd end up back in that same position. Now behind me we've got SHAREfactory, and he was putting me under a bit of pressure. I could feel him just starting to breathe down my neck. But again, so far so good. I haven't spun off the track. A number of people, I would say out of, I think there were 19 people that started, and I would say at least a third of the lineup has spun off the track. So just goes to show on hards how tricky it is, and getting a balance with your tyre handling and speed. This corner here is very tricky. This one here, at the beginning of the race, I was quite nervous and not really getting it right. It took me a while to sort of settle down. See, again, just making sure I'm staying in that slipstream. I'm just starting to catch up on Soul Reaper, and SHAREfactory is easily in my slipstream. So there's no time for me to relax at this moment, and while I'm racing, I'm just watching that time, and which can be quite dangerous. Yeah. You can see him in the mirror there. He goes in a bit hard there, so obviously he falls back a bit. But there's no room for errors, or else you've got the person behind you all over you. So my hope was in this area, within Soul Reaper's slipstream, just to pull away. So going out wide like this is not good. I'm following. Oh, watch this. He unghosts now. That's Australian Doom there. That slows me up, and that lets SHAREfactory through. So I've gone from 6th place to 7th, and I couldn't work out what was going on. Looks like Australian Doom had gone off track. I have said before, to me, when a car is ghosted, it should start to flash to say I'm about to unghost, especially when you're going down the road and you have nowhere to go but through a car. You know, a ghosted car instantly becomes unghosted, and you can blow your engine hitting them. It should begin to flash to give you a warning, maybe over a period of 1.5 seconds, for example. I would have had at least a fair idea that he's about to unghost. But let's move on. So Australian Doom, as you saw, he pitted. So from 7th back to 6th. And now we're getting near the end of the race here. So you can see here, I just got the feeling SHAREfactory was getting a little bit loose, and having a heavy car, maybe his tyres are getting a bit old. You know, all that side movement, he's really wearing them hard. and off he goes. Now, was that tyres? Was that pressure? Was he watching his split times? I don't know. But I'm back to 5th and back behind SHAREfactory. And that also gives me quite a bit of time, bit of breathing space behind me. So the question is, can we catch up? Now, I must admit, I was a bit concerned that SHAREfactory would have felt bad about that bump on the overtake, and I was concerned that he would begin to slow down to give me that position back, which I didn't feel would be warranted had he done it. But luckily, he just punched on. Like I said before, he was catching up, and I thought if there's an opportunity to let him pass, I'll let him pass. And I did go wide, and so I thought, I'll just stay wide and let him through. So I'm glad that he didn't start slowing up. But all the same, I'm still going to try and push to catch up. So we're on second to last lap, the penultimate lap as they call it, and I could see SHAREfactory was catching up. He was about 3.2 seconds behind after his mishap on the final corner. And I could see the time coming down, and I thought, right, I've got about a lap and a half. I've got to manage this. So I wasn't really worried about SHAREfactory at the moment. I was watching SHAREfactory's split time. Like here, this was not a good corner. I think I was focusing on those cones and I just broke a touch late. So the time now starts to come down to here, getting a bit wrong. And I just question myself, what are you doing? Do not at the last minute give up position 5. So he's down at 1.6, 1.5, and I thought, uh-oh, he's still out of my slipstream. I've just got to put in a really good lap now. Let's see here, the time was going back up again from 1.2 to 1.5. So I thought, okay, I've controlled the situation. And every corner that I met, I thought, right, I'm getting closer to the finish line. I was just really concerned about SHAREfactory catching up. And I get this right. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. 1.2, and it was around here. I thought, right, you got 1.3. Yeah, I've got this. So it was good racing against some of the guys. SHAREfactory was really good. And my fuel, 9 laps worth of fuel, I only just got home. 0.7 laps of fuel remaining. I'll tell you what, that was it for me for the day. That was the first and only race. Yeah. So from position 6 to position 5, up 1 place, 59 points. Not exactly brilliant, but I was happy with that. Looking forward to seeing your races, guys. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and see you in the next one.